Hey Warriors, this is the third lesson of our unit on clinical psychology, abnormal psychology. Here we're going to talk about dissociative disorders and somatoform disorders. First, dissociative disorders. Have you ever experienced when you've been so engrossed in an activity and somebody calls your name and you don't hear them? Or I've asked you this one before. Have you ever driven home from school or just been so zoned out that you don't even realize how you got there? That's kind of dissociation. Dissociation is when we are not actually conscious of what's going on because our procedural memories just put us on autopilot. We don't know what we're doing because we don't have to pay attention to what we're doing. Dissociation is the separation of certain personality components or mental processes from conscious thought. And in these situations, dissociation is normal. However, when dissociation occurs as a way to avoid stressful events and situations, it might be a psychological disorder. So people with dissociation disorders may lose memory of a particular event or forget their identity. It's believed that this dissociation occurs when individuals are faced with urges or experiences that are very stressful. By disassociating, we are able to remove ourselves from the source of stress and lessen the feelings of anxiety. Now, the four that we'll be talking about are amnesia, fugue, dissociative identity disorder, and depersonalization. Now, dissociative amnesia is like it sounds like. It's characterized by a sudden loss of memory, usually following some sort of traumatic event. And the person experiencing the amnesia may not remember events that occurred in a certain period of time after the traumatic event. A person may forget prior experiences. They may be unable to remember their own names, recognize friends and family, or recall personal information. Dissociative amnesia may last for just a few hours, but it could persist for years. Memory can return just as suddenly as it was lost. Dissociative fugue is one that we talked about in the memory unit. And it's characterized by forgetting personal information and past events, but also relocating to a different location, for going away from home or work and taking on a new identity. Like dissociative amnesia, fugue usually follows a traumatic event, and the traumatic event is usually very psychologically stressful. It's reported that sometimes it happens in wartime or natural disasters. And when these people travel away from their homes, may take on a new identity, a new person, a new residence, a new occupation, and they don't know about the last one. And then they just kind of ingratiate themselves into a new identity, and they appear to be away from the family that they knew for years. When it comes to an end, they no longer remember what happened during their fugue state. I'll show you what this looks like for real in a real person in class. Dissociative identity disorder, you might have some knowledge of this because it's all the time the subject of a TV show or something, but it involves the existence of two or more personalities within a single individual, and the various personalities don't know about the others. At least two of the personalities can take on controlling the individual's behavior. And each personality is likely to be different in several different ways, including observable traits, things that we can see in their behavior, their voice, their facial expressions, even right-handed versus left-handedness, and gender and age and different physical characteristics. One personality might wear glasses, one might have allergies. They may also behave very differently from each other. And they might have sexual preferences that are different. And dissociative disorders are the results of trauma or severe physical, mental, sexual abuse. And dissociative identity disorder is preceded by trauma. Now, the lady on your screen here is a woman named Sybil, and she was the case of a famous story of dissociative identity disorder. And I'll tell you more about that in class, as usual. It was a subject of a movie, TV show in the 1970s. You can see Sally Field if you recognize her from Forrest Gump, from Mrs. Doubtfire, shows like that. But she played Sybil. She played Shirley Mason in this show, and it's really good. But we have more to say about that, and save it for later. Okay, depersonalization disorder is these feelings of detachment from one's mental processes or body, almost like having an out-of-body experience. And honestly, this is the one I know the least about, but This happens, again, resulting from trauma. People with this disorder describe feeling as though they are outside their bodies. They observe themselves at a distance. They feel distant, emotionally unconnected from themselves. It's like they're watching their life unfold in a movie. They may have trouble concentrating or with memory, and they might feel spaced out. Related to trauma, and it's a defense mechanism in relationship with this trauma. So what's the cause of these disorders? Well, it depends on your personality view. Psychodynamic theorists would say that dissociation occurs to get rid of our unacceptable urges. And our learning theorists would say that we learn not to think about these disturbing events in order to avoid this pain and anxiety. You can kind of see that with dissociative identity disorder. It's a way to escape the feelings of anxiety due to a trauma. And there's no genetic evidence biologically of the causes of dissociation. So that's all I have for right now about dissociation and dissociative disorders. We'll save some videos for class, and I'll show you more about what it looks like when the people suffer from these illnesses. So let's transition to somatoform disorders. Somatoform comes from the Greek word soma, which means body. So guess what somatoform disorders involve? If you said body, you'd be correct. So let's check it out. All right, people with somatoform disorders have psychological problems like depression or anxiety or something, but they experience the inexplicable and unexplainable physical symptoms like paralysis or pain within their body. It's important to distinguish the differences between somatoform disorders and really attempts to fake an illness in order to avoid things like work, school, whatever. Because somatoform disorders aren't people who are trying to fake an illness. Like, these are legitimate concerns, and they honestly feel the pain of the disorder. They can't move their limbs, whatever the case may be. So it's easy for us to go to, they're faking it, but this isn't the case. Now, we don't have reliable statistics about somatoform disorders that say, yes, this is in fact a case of somatoform disorders. But, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not clinically able to say whether a person is faking it or not. So I don't think any of us should do that. We start with conversion disorder, hypochondriasis, and then body dysmorphia. All right, conversion disorder or functional neurological symptom disorder is a change in the loss of physical functioning in a major part of the body without any physical explanation. The signs and symptoms of this disorder typically affect your movement or your senses, such as the ability to walk, the ability to swallow, even to speak, see, or hear. Conversion disorder symptoms can vary in severity, and they may come and go or be persistent. The outcome may be better in younger children than in teenagers and adults. According to some experts, most people get better with immediate and proper management. So it's going to take some work for us to get over these symptoms. A conversion disorder, a leg may become paralyzed after you fall from a horse, even though you weren't physically hurt. Conversion disorder signs and symptoms appear with no underlying causes, and you can't control. Now, hypochondriasis is no longer listed in the DSM-5 because it's kind of become a bad term. Like, being called somebody a hypochondriac is insulting, and so they've renamed it. With hypochondriasis, a person may become absorbed with a physical symptom or sensation and convince themselves that the symptom is serious enough that they need medical attention. And these people maintain their false beliefs even when a doctor says, no, you don't have this, there's nothing wrong with you. And they might seek a second opinion. Our last somatoform disorder is body dysmorphia, and body dysmorphia is a disorder that is characterized where people believe that they have an unfounded or detected deformity in their bodies and their appearance. They might be obsessed with especially their face, their physical jawline, their nose, and they might seek out cosmetic surgery to correct that. For the DSM-5, body dysmorphia disorder is a diagnostic criterion describing repetitive behavior or mental obsessions. In order to explain this, the psychodynamic theory would say that somatoform disorders happen when individuals repress their emotions and are associated with the forbidden urges within their unconscious, and instead they express them in symbolic physical symptoms. The symptoms represent a compromise between the unconscious need to express the fears and the anxiety and actually expressing them. Behavioral theorists may feel that somatoform disorders can serve as a reinforcer, and it gets the person's attention and it allows them to focus that attention on the illnesses themselves and not on the anxiety or the issues that are causing the symptoms. And some would say biologically that evidence suggests genetic factors may play a role in these illnesses. So folks, that's dissociative disorders and somatoform disorders. And of course, in class, we'll go into more detail about this. I have some video where I will show you the people that have these disorders, and it'll kind of erase some of the mystery behind it. All right, we'll see you in class, and I hope you enjoyed this one.